If you have questions about the SpotOn GPS fence for large dogs, this is going to be the video for you, because today what I'm going to do is basically cover a couple of the newest features of SpotOn GPS fence, as well as the frequently asked questions that I have received since we did our unboxing a little less than a year ago. If you have not seen that unboxing and the subsequent videos that I've done on SpotOn GPS fence that give you a much more in-depth view of what this GPS fence is for dogs, how it works, all of the ins and outs, I have other videos which I will link in the description below. But in this video, I'm basically just going to go through the frequently asked questions that I have received here on YouTube, on Instagram, Facebook, and through email. I've had a number of people ask me questions about it, and so what I wanted to do is just simply share my answers to those questions with all of you. Okay, and then I'm also going to talk about the two newest features, the home zone and the keep out zone, just briefly, just to give you a little idea of the newest features that SpotOn has actually released. So if you are new here, my name is Stephanie, aka Big Dog Mom, and on this channel I provide information and resources to help you and your big dog live your best life together. So with that said, what I'm going to do is, you will see I have my phone here. I do have a note stock with all of the questions that I've received. So I'm simply just going to go one question after the other. I'll put timestamps down below. This shouldn't be a terribly long video, but we will see how it goes. But I'll put timestamps down below so that you have easy reference, so that you can get to your questions most efficiently. But the first thing that I wanted to do was talk a little bit about the home zone feature and the keep out zone feature, just super briefly. There's lots of information out there. You can go to the SpotOn GPS Fence website. I will put links to that down below, where they give a lot more information. But I'm just simply going to share with you our experience using the home zone feature and the keep out zone feature. Put simply, the home zone basically takes the place of what used to be called the forest mode. So if you have updated your collar, or if you're interested in SpotOn GPS Fence, basically what you will use now instead of the forest mode is what's called the home zone. And basically what that does is allows your dog to wear their collar in the house without any risk of being corrected. And there's a more detailed explanation. I actually did an interview with Sung Vivathana, who is one of the founders and the inventor of this technology, and he goes into a lot more detail about what this actually is. So I encourage you to watch that video. I will link it in the description. But for us, just as regular users of the SpotOn GPS fence, all it does is enable us to be able to keep the collars on our dog in the house without them being corrected. In addition, as you can see behind me, we live in a heavily wooded area. And so because SpotOn GPS fence is really one of the most highly effective and accurate GPS fences, even in a situation where you're in heavy tree cover, you have all of the capability of the GPS fence, even in your home, even in a heavily wooded area. At all times, you have that ability, but because you designate your home as the area where you want that, you don't really necessarily need the GPS accuracy inside your home, but it does allow you to keep those collars on without fear of the dogs being corrected. I hope I did not butcher that too badly, but nonetheless, I will put links to more information about that in the description below. So the keep out zone is basically a fence within a fence. And so for us, as I have mentioned in numerous videos, the saga of our garden, where Sulley basically ate our entire cantaloupe patch and our peach tree. Peaches are not good for dogs, so we learned that. Nonetheless, the keep out zone when we first got SpotOn would have been tremendously beneficial. But now, basically what we did is we designated a keep out zone, our garden, as the keep out zone, and we named it the Forbidden Garden. So basically our dogs have their big fence, so our Big Dog winter fence, I think is what I have it called. And then within that winter fence, we have this little zone, and the only qualification is it has to be 30 feet by 30 feet at least. And so as long as you have an area of about that much size or bigger, essentially, this will work. And the other issue that you have to just make sure that your boundary of your keep out zone doesn't butt up against the boundary of the main fence. So ours did a little bit, so I had to finagle the lines just a tiny bit for us, but it was no big deal. But nonetheless, now we have the forbidden garden within our larger fence. And so for the dogs, that basically means they can go beside the fence, they can go up into the front of the fence, they can come down the driveway that's next to the fence, but they can't go in where that the virtual fence is. And so they're alerted with, like they are around every other boundary, they're alerted with audio tones so that they have learned, so they know when they hear that tone they don't go any further. And so for us, it's worked perfectly. The keep out zone, we also have bees, and so the bees we actually located within our forbidden garden. But if you didn't have it like that, you could have, bees or chickens or, anything else where you just don't want your dog to go in. You can designate that as a keep out zone within your larger fenced area. So it's an awesome feature, and I know they're coming out with some, enhancements to that keep out zone, which I'm super excited about. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned to Big Dog Mom. Hit that old subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And if you're getting value from this video, for sure, click that like button. I greatly appreciate it. It doesn't cost you a dime to do that. So, okay, moving on to the questions. As I said, I have notes in my phone, so I'm just going to simply go through them and answer those questions. If you need any additional information, as I said, I've done other more in-depth videos on SpotOn GPS Fence, so certainly take advantage of the links down below, and let me know in the comments if you have any additional questions, and I can do a part 2 of this potentially. So the next few questions they all deal with the collars themselves and the batteries. So number 1, how do you charge the collar? The SpotOn GPS Fence actually comes with a charger, and it's super simple. It's just goes into your wall and the collar sits into it. I showed this in my unboxing video, the collar's being charged. It's super simple. Takes about an hour or so for the collar to go from basically dead to fully charged. So it's about an hour, I think, in our experience. How long does the battery last? We charge our collars every single night. So in other words, our dogs don't sleep in their collars. And in fact, when I bring the dogs in, I take the collars off just by habit. But nonetheless, yeah, the dogs use them all day. They're coming in and out of the house and whatnot. And so at the end of the night, before I go to bed, I stick them on the charger, and then they just charge overnight. If I don't do that, which I frequently forget to do that, I will do it first thing in the morning before the dogs ever wake up. And like I said, they're charged within about an hour, so it's really no big deal for us. And then how long does it take to charge? I just answered that. For us, about an hour. And then how do you know if it's fully charged? The app will actually, the SpotOn GPS Fence will actually notify you if you're running low on battery. It will notify you if the collar has turned off because it's out of battery. To know if it's fully charged, I basically just check the app, and that tells you your battery status at any time. So super simple, and that's really all there is to it. So enough said on that one. Okay, so does SpotOn come with training flags? So I got a couple of questions about just how to train the dogs and that sort of thing. I will point you to the video that I did where I talked in detail about how the dogs were trained, and I kind of showed how we train the dogs to the alert tones with the fence. But for this question, just to simply answer, no. The SpotOn GPS Fence, the Generation 2 version, which is the one we have, it does not come with training flags. And the reason is super logical, and the reason is you train your dog to the audio tones, the alert tones that are given as the dog approaches the boundary. You don't really need a visual cue, because really you want the dog to be understanding their boundary with the audio. And so that's why there's no flags. You could, and I talked about this in one of my videos initially, there are bugs out here and they keep flying around my head. So I talked about in one of my videos about the training flags, and really I showed that we did put a few flags out just so I could check the accuracy of the fence with the tree cover, and it was spot on, as you might guess. And so I never really used those flags. The dogs basically ignored them, and really it was just training them to understand the alert tones. There's 2 different tones, and so you know, the dogs get used to what that means, and then what happens if they go too far. And so for us, it's a vibration that they'll feel. And really, it's more, the training is really more about you being enthusiastic and encouraging about your dog staying inside the boundary than it is the kind of the punishment if they go too far, if that makes any sense. So my focus always with the training was not necessarily even dealing with the flags themselves, but just as I could hear on my phone the alert tone as I have the dog next to me, it was really more about being overly enthusiastic about the dog coming back in. And so like I said, I did a whole video showing this training process, and I'm happy to talk more in depth about that if you guys want. So just let me know in the comments below. Okay, the next question is, so will this fence work for a small property of less than a half an acre? So there are some qualifications to my answer. The answer is yes, more than likely, but your property needs to be at least 80 feet at the narrowest point. So the reason is, as your dog is passing through that narrowest point, because the alert tones start within where the boundary is, you know, you're talking 10 feet or so before they get to the boundary, and then 10 feet on both sides, it makes the boundary too narrow in the middle there, where they don't have real full freedom. And so that's why the reason for the 80 feet. But yeah, so a half an acre is a decent sized property, and so it will likely work. What I would encourage you to do is, I'm going to put a link down below to the support, SpotOn GPS Fence support, and what they will do, you can basically send them kind of a map of your property with the dimensions, and they can take a look at that. They're more than happy to do that. They will look at your property and tell you if it's a good fit, if SpotOn's a good fit for you before you buy it. So I highly encourage you, if you have a question about it, that you check with SpotOn first before purchasing. But even if you purchased it and it didn't work out, you have 90 days money back guarantee, so you could always just do that too. So yes, more than likely a half acre property, it will work. And then on the upper end, I didn't receive this question, but there's no limit to how big your GPS fence can be. If you have 100,000 acres and you are blessed with, you know, I don't know, I guess probably the size of an entire state in this country, for crying out loud, you should be fine. So a GPS fence can be an unlimited size, you know, on the upper end, and then, you know, the half acre is about the smallest you could do. So let's move on. So do you have to use the static correction? I know that there, and I've talked about this in other videos, I know there's a lot of people that just absolutely do not want to have anything to do with kind of a static correction with their dog, and I totally understand that. We don't use the static correction, so the answer is no. You do not have to enable the static correction. There's multiple levels that you can have full flexibility to adjust as you would like to. So you have a vibration, you have the static correction if you want to enable that, and then you have those alert tones. And so really it's what you want it to be. And like I said, I really tried to just focus on training our dogs to really just have a blast within their border. And so we haven't had a problem with them crossing over, even with the temptation of people walking on the street with their dogs. Like, our dogs generally just are enjoying being crazy ball dogs within our yard. So yeah, you do not have to use the static correction at all. Okay, so the next question I got is, SpotOn waterproof? Can dogs swim with it on? And the answer is yes, absolutely. I've bathed my dogs with our SpotOn collars. Unfortunately, we don't have a pool here, but we did in Arizona, and our dogs swam all the time. We didn't have SpotOn at that time, but if we did, we could have easily had the dogs be swimming with it on. The nice thing is, so I did look it up, it's waterproof to IP67 standards, and the collar floats, so it's not going to weigh your dog down as he's swimming. So that's a really awesome feature. And then, you know, as far as temperatures, this wasn't the question, but I thought it was interesting that we had ours, you know, through the depths of winter and all summer. And so but it can be worn in negative 30 degrees up to 120. So, and without any issue and any problems with the accuracy and the functionality of the collar. So the next question, is there a way to draw the lines versus walking them? So this person has a lake on their property, and they wanted the dog to be able to swim in the lake without being corrected. And with the way that most people think of how you draw the lines of the GPS fence. You have to walk the lines with the collar, and that's what's drawing your line. Well, that is true. That is one method of creating your GPS fence, but there's many others now, actually. And so, yes, you can actually just, within the SpotOn GPS Fence app, create an entire fence just moving fence posts, and it's super simple. You can create temporary circular fences if you want to. There's so much capability within this that really, oh, you have a nice big slobber, Sulley. Hi. You can basically create a fence using multiple methods, and you can also edit a fence. So say I walked our perimeter and needed to adjust something. We are putting in something, and I wanted to just move the boundary lines to keep out a certain area. And this is not the keep out zone, but just for illustrative purposes, I could basically pull up that fence and then move my fence boundary just using the app to change the boundary lines. And it's so simple, literally a click of a button and it's done. You save the fence, you activate it on the collar, and you're done. So couldn't be simpler. And yes, so to answer that question, yes, you can definitely just draw the lines on your phone. I know people with really huge properties where they know where they're, from the aerial Google view, they can tell where their specific property is. And so drawing the lines where they need to be is easy for them. For us, we live in the woods, and so I needed to walk our property for the most part. So just kind of depends on where you live. Okay, just a couple more questions. So how many fences can I have? We actually have, I think, 5 on ours so far. But you can store up to 20 fences on your collar, and then you can set up more temporary fences as well. So if you travel with your dogs, you can set up a temporary fence. You can activate and deactivate individual fences at any time. It's super simple, but yeah, you can have up to 20 fences saved on your collar at any point in time. Do I need a cell service with the SpotOn GPS Fence? And so no, the answer is no. You do not need a cellular plan in order to get the full functionality of the SpotOn GPS Fence, which is truly one of the features that I love the most. Well, I shouldn't say it's the feature that I love the most, but it is something that drew me to SpotOn GPS Fence, and that is that there's no monthly subscription if you don't want it. And I love that. I hate monthly subscriptions, so that is a huge draw for us. But now they do have a tracking feature that you can, it's an optional tracking that you can subscribe to. We do have it, and it does come in handy. It is very nice, especially if you live where you have a clear kind of cell signal. They use AT&T and Verizon, so you can pick one of those two that, whichever one works best in your area, and it works really well. So basically all that does is it notifies you if your dog has left the boundary. So again, if you live really remote, or you're in an area where you just really need to be notified if your dog leaves, we just don't. And for me and my dogs, I have Mastiffs, they just don't, they're guard dogs. I mean, they generally don't really tend to want to leave our property. They're more focused on their job, which is at home, but other breeds are very different. And so, yep, I would just leave it up to you, but you do not have to have it. The SpotOn GPS Fence, the alert tones, however you have it enabled for vibration or static correction, all of that is fully functional. Everything I've already told you in this video, you have all the features, all the benefits, without any kind of monthly subscription. It is just the one-time fee or one-time purchase price of the collar, which is the GPS fence. I hope I answered that sufficiently. So no, you get the full fence without a subscription, which is awesome. Okay, the last question that I've received a few times, and that is with regard to the expense and the purchase price of the collar and its practicality for people with multiple dogs. Most of the people that follow Big Dog Mom are honestly people with multiple dogs. I have 2 Mastiffs. Mastiffs are expensive dogs just existing. And I totally understand the whole idea that, yeah, you're going to purchase a $1,200 collar for your dog. That's insane. That seems very expensive. But to be honest, when I compared the price of the SpotOn GPS Fence collars versus burying a wire over 7 acres of woods and the difficulty of doing that, mind you. The other GPS fences that don't have the same functionality, especially in a wooded area, and there's lots of other reasons, but then when I even factored in, if we could, which we can't because we live in an HOA, if we could put up a physical fence, is that even practical in 7 acres of woods? And the answer for us was just clearly no. So, everybody has to make the decision for themselves. Just my opinion is that it is absolutely an investment that is so worth it for us. But, I get that everybody has to make that decision. And I will tell you just a couple of things that they do help out with people that have multiple dogs. You do get 10% off each additional dog that you need a collar for. And then you can also save $100 if you use code BigDogMom, and I'll have that in a graphic on the screen and then a link down below. So if you just type in BigDogMom at checkout, that will save you an additional $100, which is awesome. As I mentioned before, they do have a 90-day money-back guarantee, and they do offer free shipping. So, and I will just say their support and all of what you get when you buy a SpotOn GPS fence is really absolutely top-notch. They have so much there to help you and to guide you, to give you whatever you need to make this a successful fence for your dog, and something that's safe and humane. It's really amazing, and I think well worth the money. But yes, it is a US-based company with amazing first-in-class technology, and so yeah, that does come with a price. I think it's worth it, but I'll just leave that up to you to decide that for yourself. Those were the questions that I had received. Let me know if you have any additional questions about SpotOn GPS Fence, and I would be happy to answer them in the comments below. If you have anything that you would like to see a video on relative to SpotOn GPS Fence, or anything else for that matter that's related to big dogs, I am happy to do that as well. So certainly let me know in the comments below. If you have not done so already, hit that subscribe button if you enjoy big dog related content, and hit that like button if you got value from this video. I appreciate you being here, and we will see you in our next video. Bye for now. Judy! Yuck. Okay, we're gonna move on with the video here in just a second. Sulley, you're dirty.